June 4, 1942. 10:52 a.m. Japanese carrier Hiru, 150 miles northwest of Midway. Lieutenant Neo Kobayashi's hand shook as he marked positions on his navigation chart, the pencil hovering over coordinates that seemed impossible. Through the ready room porthole, he could see Admiral Yamaguchi Tamman examining reconnaissance photographs with an expression of profound disbelief. Not anger, not confusion, but the dawning awareness that something fundamental had gone catastrophically wrong. Impossible. We confirmed her sinking at Coral Sea. I saw her burning, listing, abandoned. The photograph showed an American carrier launching aircraft, its distinctive island structure unmistakable even through the grainy image. 3 carriers. The Americans had 3 carriers at Midway, not 2. The mathematical certainty of victory for Japanese carriers against 2 Americans had just collapsed. In the Coral Sea 27 days earlier, Japanese pilots had left the same carrier mortally damaged, trailing oil and dead in the water. Admiral Takagi had reported to Tokyo, Yorktown-class carrier eliminated. The Naval General Staff had removed her from their calculations. Yet here she was, USS Yorktown, very much operational, her aircraft already diving on the Japanese fleet. Through the intercom, Kobayashi could hear confusion spreading through Hiru like wildfire. 3 carriers meant 230 American aircraft, not 150. 3 carriers meant the ambush had been reversed. 3 carriers meant everything. Imperial Navy intelligence regarding American repair capabilities was catastrophically flawed. Seeing Yorktown at Midway shattered the fundamental Japanese assumption about industrial reality. In Imperial Navy calculations, repairing battle damage required meticulous attention, months of labor, and honor-bound craftsmanship. A carrier with a 551-pound bomb hole through 5 decks, ruptured fuel tanks, and destroyed compartments would require a minimum of 90 days in the finest naval yard. The math had been irrefutable. Enterprise and Hornet were the only operational American carriers in the Pacific. Lexington lay at the bottom of the Coral Sea. Saratoga remained under repair from torpedo damage. The new Essex-class carriers would not be ready until 1943. Japanese intelligence had confirmed this repeatedly. Yet mathematics counted for nothing to the SBD Dauntless dive bombers now plummeting toward Japanese flight decks. As Admiral Nagumo's staff officers recalculated frantically, one truth emerged: they had based Operation MI entirely on the assumption that the Americans could not accomplish what they had evidently done. The silence that followed seemed eternal. Finsterag finally gulped and said, "Yes, sir." Station Hypo, the intelligence imperative. The 3-day deadline wasn't arbitrary. In the basement of Building 1, just 400 yards from the dry dock. Commander Joseph Rashford Station Hypo had cracked JN-25, the Japanese Naval Operations Code. They knew AF meant Midway. They knew the attack date, June 4th. They knew the Japanese order of battle for carriers of the 1st Air Fleet. More crucially, they knew the Japanese expected to face only Enterprise and Hornet. The Japanese believed Yorktown was eliminated. This intelligence transformed Yorktown's repair from urgent to existential. Without her, Americans would face 4:2 odds. With her 3-4 still unfavorable but possible. The 72-hour marathon, May 28, 5:30 a.m. Dry Dock Number 1. Before the dock fully drained while water still swirled ankle deep, 1,400 workers swarmed aboard Yorktown. They came from every shop on the base. Welders, electricians, shipfitters, machinists, pipefitters, sheet metal workers. Many had worked through the night on other ships. They would work for 72 straight hours. The repair defied Japanese industrial philosophy. Instead of careful planning and hierarchical approvals, the work proceeded as controlled chaos. Supervisors made decisions instantly. Workers crossed trade boundaries. The only rule maker fight. The specific techniques would have horrified Japanese naval architects. The bomb damage. The 551-pounds bomb had created destruction from flight deck through 5 levels. Japanese doctrine would require cutting away damaged steel, fabricating replacement sections, rebuilding each deck. Time required 30 days. Pearl Harbor's solution: leave damaged structure in place. Weld massive plates over everything. Shore weakened areas with wooden beams from construction sites. Time 18 hours. The fuel tanks near misses had ruptured tanks along 30 frames, contaminating fuel supplies. Japanese protocol demanded draining, cleaning, inspection, individual repair. Time 2 weeks. American solution: pump out contaminated fuel. Seal ruptures with quick hardening. Cement meant for runway repair. Weld plates over everything. Ignore tanks too. Damaged for quick repair. Seal them completely. Time 11 hours. The machinery: 3 boiler rooms damaged. Superheat capacity reduced 70%. Maximum speed limited to 27 knots instead of 32.5. Japanese standards required complete replacement. Pearl Harbor's approach: ignore the superheaters entirely. Accept speed reduction. Focus on basic function. Time 14 hours. The workers. Reality: electrician Lewis Walters, 21 years old, later recalled, "We didn't have time for proper repairs. We ran cables over decks instead of through conduits. We welded plates over holes instead of replacing damaged sections. Everything was temporary, ugly, but functional." The arithmetic of the repair: 20 tons of steel plate welded, 35 miles of electrical cable strung, 400 tons of contaminated fuel pumped out, 3 demolished compartments sealed off, continuous arc welding drawing so much power it caused rolling blackouts across Oahu. Workers ate while welding. Slept in 15-minute shifts against bulkheads. When welding consumed so much electricity that hospitals lost power, Oahu's civilians accepted rolling blackouts without complaint. When the yard needed lumber, construction companies delivered without paperwork. The hull repairs defied naval architecture principles. Ruptured seams were wedged with wood, covered with steel plates, and welded solid, creating what one engineer called a metal scab. Electrical repairs abandoned all pretense of proper procedure. Cables were strung along decks, through hatches, across ceilings. The departure: May 30, 1942. 9 a.m. Yorktown departed with shipyard workers still aboard, continuing repairs as she gathered speed. These workers would leave the ship as she cleared the harbor. The air group assembled on her flight deck was itself testament to adaptability. Bombing Squadron 3 from USS Saratoga. Torpedo Squadron 3 cobbled together from survivors. Fighting Squadron 3 combining pilots from 3 different squadrons who had never operated together. As Yorktown cleared Pearl Harbor, the workers who had performed the impossible lined the docks. Chief Hull Technician Fingstag would later say, "We sent her out looking like a fighter who'd been patched up between rounds. She wasn't pretty, but she could still throw punches." Point Luck Rendezvous, June 2, 1942. 325 miles northeast of Midway when Yorktown joined Enterprise and Hornet at Point Luck. The other carrier's crews were stunned. Commander W.D.E. McCluskey, Enterprise's Air Group Group Commander, later wrote, "We knew Yorktown had been damaged at Coral Sea. We expected maybe she'd limp in as reserve. Instead, she was launching aircraft, running flight operations, looking ready for battle." Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher, commanding from Yorktown, understood something crucial. Yorktown's presence wasn't just about adding aircraft. It was about shattering Japanese assumptions. In his final briefing, Fletcher told his staff, "The Japanese have planned this operation for months, every detail calculated for facing two carriers. When our aircraft appear over their fleet, that certainty dies." Japanese confidence. Aboard flagship Akagi, Admiral Nagumo Chuchi conducted final preparations with absolute confidence. For carriers, Egi, Kaga, Sorya, Hiru with 248 aircraft against two American carriers with 150 aircraft. Veterans of Pearl Harbor against Americans who had yet to win a carrier battle. Captain Minoru Genda, Nagumo's air operations officer, had wargamed every scenario. Even if Americans achieved surprise, Japanese pilot superiority and numerical advantage would prevail. The only variable that could change the equation would be a third American carrier, and intelligence confirmed that was impossible. Yorktown was dead. Commander Mitsuo Fuida, who had led the Pearl Harbor attack, was sick with appendicitis, but remained as observer. Years later, he would write, "Our entire plan rested on intelligence that the Americans had two carriers. Not approximately two, not possibly three. Exactly two. If wrong, everything was wrong." June 4, the shattering. For 30 a.m. Japanese carriers launched 108 aircraft against Midway. The morning began according to plan. Nagumo held 108 aircraft in reserve for the American fleet, confident in his trap. 7:10 a.m. Japanese scout plane reports. American carrier sighted. One carrier was expected. Nagumo ordered his reserve aircraft rearmed with torpedoes for ship attack. Then confusion. Scout reported. Appears to be two carriers still within calculations. 8:20 a.m. Torpedo Squadron. 8 from Hornet attacks. Lieutenant Commander John Waldron led 15 TBD Devastators against the Japanese fleet without fighter escort. All 15 were shot down. Only Enan George Gay survived. But Waldron's sacrifice pulled the Japanese combat air patrol down to sea level. 8:40 a.m. Torpedo Squadron 6. From Enterprise attacks. 10 of 14 Devastators shot down. No hits, but again, defending Zeros were drawn low. 9:15 a.m. Torpedo Squadron. 3 from Yorktown attacks. This was the moment of revelation. As 12 more Devastators began their runs, Japanese lookouts counted the attacking aircraft. Too many. The mathematics were wrong. There were 3 American carriers, not 2. On Hiro's bridge, Admiral Yamaguchi calculated rapidly. 3 carriers changed everything. But before new orders could be issued, before the Japanese could adjust, the dive bombers arrived. 10:22 a.m. The decisive moment. Lieutenant Commander Maxwell Leslie, leading Yorktown's bombing Squadron 3, had gotten lost, then found the Japanese by following a destroyer's wake. His 17 SBD Dauntless arrived over the Japanese fleet at the exact moment as Enterprise's bombers, not by plan, but by accident of Yorktown's delayed launch, due to her damaged boilers. From 14,000 feet, Leslie looked down at for Japanese carriers with flight decks packed with armed and fueled aircraft. Their combat air patrol at sea level. Within 6 minutes, 3 Japanese carriers were burning. Soryo, hit by 3 bombs from Leslie's squadron, exploded in flames, visible for 50 miles. Japanese response, attacking the Ghost. Admiral Yamaguchi on Hiru faced impossible odds. 3 American carriers against his sole survivor. But he launched 18 dive bombers and 6 fighters against the nearest American carrier, Yorktown. As the strike approached, Flight Leader Lieutenant M.O. Kobayashi studied the carrier through binoculars and felt his world tilt. The island structure, the Flight deck configuration. This was Yorktown, the ship they had killed at Coral Sea. 12:05 p.m. 3 bombs hit Yorktown, starting fires, rupturing steam lines. The ship went dead in the water. For the second time in 27 days, Japanese pilots left Yorktown burning. And apparently finished. But even as she burned, Yorktown had already changed everything. Her morning strike had killed Soryu. By absorbing Hiro's attack, she protected Enterprise and Hornet for the counterstrike that would kill Hiria 4 hours later. Damage control. Excellence. Captain Buckmaster ordered damage assessment. The Pearl Harbor repairs, ugly and improvised, were holding. The welded plates hadn't split. Chief Engineer John F. Delaney reported. The Japanese bombs hurt us, but the Pearl Harbor repairs are solid. Give me 2 hours. Within an hour, 3 boilers were relit, fires contained, counter-flooding. Reduced the list. By 1:40 p.m., Yorktown was making 19 knots refueling fighters. Appearing so recovered that when Hiro's second strike arrived at 2:30 p.m., the pilots believed they were attacking a different undamaged carrier. The second strike confusion. 2:30 p.m. Lieutenant Tominaga Joy leading 5 torpedo bombers all Hiyu had left expected to find a burning Yorktown. Instead, he found a carrier underway launching fighters. His confused report to Hiyu suggested they were attacking a second carrier, leading Japanese staff to believe there might be 4 American carriers present. While Tominaga's torpedoes would ultimately doom Yorktown, the confusion prevented coordinated response before Enterprise's dive bombers found and killed Hiru at 5 p.m. The final act. June 6, 1:31 p.m. Japanese submarine I-168, commanded by Lieutenant Commander Yahachi Tanab found Yorktown under tow. Tonab fired 4 torpedoes. 2 hit Yorktown, 1 hit destroyer USS Hammond alongside. As Yorktown rolled over on June 7, Tanabe logged sank American carrier, probably Saratoga. Even in death, Yorktown created confusion. The Japanese never fully understood that the carrier at Midway was the same one they thought they had sunk at Coral Sea. The mathematical reality, the numbers tell the story. Yorktown's repair, Japanese estimate for similar damage, 90 to 120 days. American peacetime standard, 30 to 45 days. Actual time taken, 72 hours. Workers involved 1,400 continuously. Combat effectiveness achieved 85%. Battle impact Japanese assumption 4. Carriers versus 2 equals certain victory. Actual situation. 4 carriers versus 3 equals rough par. Result, for Japanese carriers sunk, 1. American. Strategic multiplication. Sorya definitely sunk by Yorktown's aircraft. 2 Japanese strikes absorbed that would have hit Enterprise or Hornet. 75 Japanese aircraft destroyed. Attacking Yorktown. Japanese offensive capability permanently ended. The witnesses speak. Years later, the participants would reflect on what Yorktown's presence meant. Commander Mitsuo Fuita, Japanese. The appearance of a third carrier shattered our planning. Every calculation, every scenario assumed 2 carriers. When lookouts reported more torpedo planes than 2 carriers could launch, we knew something was terribly wrong. By the time we understood, 3 carriers were burning. Aviation machinist Tom Cheek, USS Enterprise. When we saw Yorktown at Point Luck, grown men actually cheered. We knew she'd been hurt bad at Coral Sea, but there she was, patched like a prize fighter, ready for another round. Electrician Wayne Morrison, Pearl Harbor. When we heard she'd helped sink 3 Japanese carriers before taking hits, the whole yard went quiet. Then someone started clapping. Soon 10,000 workers were applauding. Those 3 days meant something. Japanese comprehension. The Japanese gradually understood what had happened, but full comprehension took years. Admiral Mate Ugaki, Yamamoto's chief of staff, wrote in his diary, the appearance of Yorktown at Midway was not luck. It was preparation. Somehow the Americans knew our plans. The 3-day repair was not a miracle. It was a response to intelligence. In 1962, Lieutenant Commander Tanner Bay visited Pearl Harbor. Shown dry dock. Number 1 where Yorktown was repaired. He stood silent for long minutes, then said, "Now I understand. We were not fighting a nation. We were fighting an idea that anything is possible if you work hard enough. We believed in spirit over matter. Americans believed in matter properly applied." Admiral Shigeru Fuku in his memoirs. Yorktown taught us the war was lost before it began. Any nation that could repair such damage in 3 days could not be defeated by any nation that required 3 months. It was mathematics. The repair philosophy. Yorktown's repair revealed fundamental differences in approach to Japanese philosophy. Perfection, craftsmanship, honor in detail. Damaged ships must be restored completely. Time less important than quality. American philosophy. Function, speed, adaptation. Damaged ships need to fight, not look pretty. Time is everything. This difference extended beyond ship repair. Japan built exquisite aircraft, perfectly engineered, handcrafted. America built good enough aircraft by thousands, each interchangeable, reparable with whatever was available. The intelligence victory. Station hypos. Codering made Yorktown's repair urgent, but the repair made the intelligence actionable. Without Yorktown, Admirals Nimitz and Fletcher might not have risked battle. With her, the odds became acceptable. Commander Rochefort later said, "We could read their mail, but reading meant nothing if we couldn't act. Yorktown gave us the strength to act." Those shipyard workers were as important as any codebreaker. The lasting impact. Yorktown's repair revolutionized naval damage control doctrine. Speed over perfection became standard. Function over form became doctrine. Innovation over procedure became practice. The Yorktown standard emerged. Any ship that floats can be saved. The repair also demonstrated American industrial character to the world. The workers who fixed Yorktown in 72 hours represented the workers who would build Liberty ships in 4 days, the 24 bombers in 63 minutes, and ultimately the atomic bomb in 3 years. Post-war recognition. In 1985, surviving Pearl Harbor workers met with Yorktown veterans in Hawaii for the battle's anniversary. Lewis Walters, the electrician who had strung cables for 72 hours, met Tom Lee, a gunner whose battle station depended on those cables. "Your wiring saved my life," Leia said. "When we took the first bomb hit, primary power failed, but your backup cables kept my guns firing." Walters replied, "We knew boys would depend on our work. Every weld, every wire, every patch, we imagined someone's son needing it to work." Admiral Nimtz's assessment. After the war, Admiral Nimitz provided the definitive evaluation. The 3 days Yorktown spent in dry dock may have been the most important 3 days of the Pacific War. Not because of the repair itself, remarkable though it was, but because of what it represented. American democracy mobilized. American workers committed, American industry unleashed. The Japanese came to Midway expecting to fight the America they imagined, slow, soft, divided. Instead, they met the America that existed: fast, tough, united. Yorktown was the proof. A ship they knew they had crippled appeared whole. When Japanese pilots saw Yorktown's aircraft over their carriers, they saw more than planes. They saw American will made manifest. They saw the future, a world where industrial might and human determination could overcome any challenge. The workers who repaired Yorktown didn't just fix a ship. They demonstrated a national characteristic that would win the war. In those 3 days, Pearl Harbor's workers proved that in America, impossible was just another word for not yet done. The numbers that define victory. The final accounting reveals the mathematical truth. Investment: 72 hours of labor, 1,400 workers, 2.2 million in materials, 3 days removed from other projects. Return: 1 Japanese carrier, definitively sunk by Yorktown's aircraft. 2 Japanese strikes absorbed. 322 Japanese aircraft destroyed in battle. 357 Japanese personnel killed. Japanese offensive capability ended permanently. Demonstration: American repair capability exceeded Japanese estimates by 3,000%. Validation of rapid repair philosophy. Creation of new damage control standards. Inspiration for accelerated production throughout American industry. The enduring question for the Japanese. One question remained. How did Americans know to repair Yorktown so quickly? How? Did they know Midway would happen on June 4th? The answer: American code errors. Where reading Japanese messages in real time wouldn't be revealed for decades. But even without knowing about the codering, the presence of Yorktown at precisely the right moment should have told them everything. The Americans knew their plans completely. Modern legacy. Today's U.S. Navy still teaches the Yorktown lesson. Speed matters more than perfection. Adaptation beats planning. The enemy won't wait for perfect repairs. Modern damage control doctrine emphasizing rapid restoration over complete repair traces directly to Yorktown's 72 hours in dry dock. Every sailor learns the story. Every damage control man knows the standard. Captain Buckmaster's summary. Yorktown's commander provided perhaps the best summary. The Japanese expected us to follow rules. They're rules about how long repairs should take, but we're Americans. We don't follow rules. We make them up as we go. Our rule was simple. Yorktown fights at Midway. Those workers at Pearl Harbor didn't perform a miracle. They performed American industrial democracy. Messy, improvised, imperfect, but unstoppable. They fixed my ship any way possible. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't proper, but it was ready. When we sailed on May 30th, Yorktown wasn't the ship she'd been before Coral Sea. She was something new. Part original, part improvisation, part determination. She was America itself, damaged but not defeated, patched but not broken, ready to fight. The Japanese at Midway met more than 3 carriers. They met American wool-made steel, and it all started with 72 hours in a dry dock when impossible became inevitable. Conclusion. The lesson of 3 days. USS Yorktown lies 16,650 feet below the Pacific surface. Discovered by Robert Ballard in 1998. She rests upright, her battle damage still visible. The Pearl Harbor repairs can still be seen. Welded plates, patched holes, ugly but functional fixes that got her to Midway. At Pearl Harbor, a plaque at Dry Dock Number 1 reads, "Here, in 72 hours, American workers performed the impossible, repairing USS Yorktown for the Battle of Midway. Their labor changed history. The Japanese had awakened a sleeping giant at Pearl Harbor. At Midway, they discovered what that giant could do when fully awake. Repair the impossible, achieve the unthinkable, appear where no one expected. Lieutenant Commander Tanabe, who delivered Yorktown's death blow, understood too late what he had faced. We thought we were fighting ships and planes. We were actually fighting an idea that nothing is impossible for those who refuse to accept impossibility. The workers who performed the impossible repair remained largely anonymous. No medals for welding, no recognition for running cable, no glory for patching steel. They returned to their work, repairing other ships, winning the war one repair at a time. But their 72 hours changed history. In proving Yorktown could be repaired in 3 days, they proved America could do anything. In sending a patched carrier to Midway, they sent a message to the world. American industrial might wasn't just about production. It was about will, innovation, and the absolute refusal to accept defeat. Yorktown's appearance at Midway was more than tactical surprise. It was proof that in the arsenal of democracy, the most powerful weapon wasn't the bomb or bullet. It was the American worker with a welding torch and 3 days to do the impossible. And they did it. The story of USS Yorktown's resurrection stands as eternal testimony to what free people can accomplish when they work together with common purpose. In just 72 hours, American workers didn't just repair a ship. They demonstrated that determination and ingenuity could overcome any obstacle. That function mattered more than form, that tomorrow's battle mattered more than yesterday's procedures. The Japanese commanders, who expressed shock at seeing Yorktown at Midway, witnessed more than one repaired ship. They witnessed the future. A world where industrial democracy would prevail over military aristocracy. Where practical problem-solving would outmatch rigid doctrine. Where workers choosing to give their best would surpass workers compelled to obey. Yorktown went to the bottom on June 7, 1942. But what she embodied rose from those waters and influenced the remainder of the war. Every rapid repair, every impossible deadline met, every obstacle overcome through ingenuity rather than procedure. All traced back to those 3 days in May when 1,400 American workers demonstrated that impossible was merely the starting point. The ghost ship that haunted Japanese pilots at Midway wasn't supernatural. It was something far more formidable, proof that American democracy, fully mobilized, could achieve anything. The workers didn't realize they were making history. They only knew they had a task in 3 days to complete it. In that brief span, they didn't just repair a carrier. They proved a principle that would carry America through the war and beyond, that free people working with shared purpose can accomplish the impossible. That principle, welded into steel and returned to the sea, helped turn the tide of history at Midway. It remains America's secret weapon still, not advanced technology or abundant resources, but the simple belief that any challenge can be overcome if you work hard enough, think smart enough, and move fast enough. The Japanese never grasped this until it was too late. They measured time in months, while Americans measured it in hours. They pursued perfection, while Americans pursued victory. They followed procedures, while Americans followed necessity. In the end, 3 days in a dry dock determined the fate of the Pacific, 3 days that proved the arsenal of democracy's greatest strength was neither the arsenal nor democracy alone, but the combination of both, free workers choosing to do the impossible, and then doing it.